Here with me now, Kevin Hassett, director of the National Economic Council. Kevin, it's great to see you tonight.
Good to see you.
China warned that it will fight to the end if that's the case. So what do you expect in the next moves here? The financial markets are watching this very closely.
Right. Well, President Xi is up against the best team that any country has ever had for a negotiation like this. We've got President Trump, and you heard Secretary Scott Bessent today. I mean, this is a guy who's smart as can be and tough as nails. And the Chinese see that the normal games of bullying aren't going to work with us. But our hope is that the friendship of the two presidents and the desire of China to start being a law-abiding member of the community of nations, that ends up working in the end. But we've got a lot of leverage that we could use against them, and we're hopeful that they'll come to the table and work with Secretary Bessent right now, relatively soon, to start to move things forward. But make no mistake, they took a classic Chinese bullying move against us last week, where they basically told the press that they were going to have this embargo practically on rare earths, which is something that would be a challenge for our economy. And they wouldn't even pick up phone calls from people in the administration that are saying, hey, wait, what's up with this? We were about to meet with President Xi. And so it was a classic attempt to bully, and it just isn't going to work against this team.
One of the more and most brilliant things I think that President Trump does, Kevin, and you know this well from working in the first term on these issues, is that he never, I'm tempted to, my approach, which is why I wouldn't be good at this, my approach would be like, we're not meeting. Meeting's off. Close the door. Let them try to reopen it. But Donald Trump says he's very cool as a cucumber here. He's like, maybe we'll work out a deal. Maybe we won't. Maybe we'll meet. Maybe we won't. I respect President Xi. I'm hoping he comes around to a more reasonable position. And that gives people kind of some wiggle room, even our adversaries, to move into. Is that what's going on here, never closing a door completely?
Well, President Trump is always open for business, and he's the guy who wrote The Art of the Deal because he's so good at negotiating. And as Secretary Bessent said, the Chinese need to join the community of nations, a law-abiding community of nations that's not putting embargoes on things left and right, because their economy is doing very, very poorly. If you take all of the state deficits that they have from the states around China and then the federal number, and you put it together, right now the deficit in China is something like 14% of GDP. So they're looking like, a Latin American country that could well have debt troubles in the aggregate in China. And so they've really put themselves into a position where they need to come to the table and work with us because President Trump is friends with President Xi. And there are a lot of us who have spent a lot of time working in China over the years where we have a lot of respect for our Chinese colleagues. And we're surprised at how much this has gone south for them. And I think that maybe it's because they're frantic given how poor their economy's doing.
Well, they have massive overcapacity because their factories churn out all this stuff. Ours is the biggest market. Now they're trying to dump a lot of that product into Europe, and Europe's close to saying we're done because, of course, their industries are hurting now in Europe. Do you see President Trump, as this moves forward, using this moment to try to squeeze China down on this Ukraine issue where obviously China is buying ag and oil from Russia? Is that part of this calculus?
Well, I guess foreign policy matters are things that the president's much better at than me. But I can say that imports into the U.S. from China have dropped by, more than half. But one of the things that's kept China going this year is that the Europeans have been buying the stuff that we're not buying. And the Europeans are facing the same kind of ultimatum that we just got from China. And so it's not really a good recipe for their economic success. And I hope they come to the table and listen to reason. And there are a lot of people within the Chinese government that are very reasonable when we talk to them. And so, again, we're hopeful. But President Trump is going to get a great deal for the American people. He's batting 100%, and we'll get this thing worked out as well.
Kevin, finally, Jerome Powell has made kind of a concession about the state of the U.S. economy. Let's watch.
Data available prior to the shutdown, however, show that growth in economic activity may be on a somewhat firmer trajectory than expected. While the unemployment rate remained low through August, payroll gains have slowed sharply, likely in part due to a decline in labor force growth due to lower immigration and lower labor force participation.
Kevin, what does that tell you?
Well, it tells me that he understands that President Trump was right all along, that he should have been cutting rates for a long time, and that he's going to continue to now. But he's not doing it because the economy is weak. Like GDP now is saying that we're growing at about 4% right now. He's doing it because inflation is under control because of President Trump's policies. He concedes that President Trump was right about low interest rates, and now he's acting, and he's covering up a little bit, saving face with those words. But the bottom line is that he is going to cut rates. It's clear in the futures markets they expect him to do it, and it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, well, so many of these people have been wrong. They've been wrong about Trump, wrong that he's going to blow up the world, wrong that we weren't going to have any friends,
right.
wrong about inflation, wrong about interest rates. And the Trump team, right, issue after issue. This is stunning to watch. Everyone has to make an admission at this point, or confession, or concession. Kevin, great to see you. Thank you so much.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.